They thought she was just another nameless contractor, a clipboard, a jumpsuit, a nobody. They were wrong. It was just after sunrise at Falcon Ridge Air Base when the massive hangar doors rumbled open, letting in a sweep of golden light across Hangar 7. Mechanics in oil-stained uniforms shuffled toward their stations, coffee in hand, joking about the usual audits. The B-2 Spirit bomber loomed in the center like a sleeping giant, its wings casting long, angular shadows across the polished floor. Among the bustle, she appeared quietly, almost like a ghost. No fanfare, no uniform stripes, no brass pins, just a woman in her mid-30s wearing an unmarked flight suit, carrying a tablet and a small personal kit. Her hair was tied back. Her expression unreadable. Her visitor badge simply read, Rebecca C. Foster, Civilian Systems Auditor. Tech Sergeant Jim Rodriguez nudged his younger partner, Airman Kyle Davis. That must be the new auditor. Davis squinted. She doesn't look like much. Rodriguez smirked. She never do. Probably can't tell a fuel line from a shoelace. As she walked past, they didn't even bother lowering their voices. Some of the crew chuckled, the kind of quiet laugh that lingers in the air, not loud enough to confront but sharp enough to wound. But the woman Rebecca said nothing. She just kept walking, measured steps, calm eyes, like she'd seen this all before. It didn't take long for the mocking to start. While Davis fumbled with a calibration tool on the fuel system, she stopped beside him, observing silently. He looked up with mild annoyance. "Can I help you with something, ma'am?" he asked, with more sarcasm than politeness. "Just documenting," she replied, her voice steady and low. Davis turned back, deliberately shifting his body to block her view. It's standard calibration, nothing you'd find interesting. Still, she didn't leave. She leaned slightly forward, scanned the readout, then calmly reached over and adjusted a dial. The numbers on the screen stabilized instantly. Davis blinked. "How did you?" "Experience," she said simply, already walking away. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. At the break table, the snide comments continued. "She's probably from some think tank in DC," someone joked. "Never even touched a real aircraft." "She's not military," another added. "No rank, no patch, she doesn't belong here." But no one could explain why. When the comms system glitched later that morning, Rebecca was the one who suggested bypassing a faulty router, and it worked. Or why, during a safety drill, she instinctively moved to the exact correct position, following every emergency protocol with the precision of someone who'd trained for it 1,000 times. It didn't make sense. None of it did. Why would a civilian contractor know the B-2 so well? Later that afternoon, Chief Engineer Martinez ran her name through the secure personnel database. All he found was a vague contractor file. No service history, no credentials, nothing. Rodriguez leaned over his shoulder. "That's it?" he asked. "No LinkedIn? No email history?" Martinez frowned. Someone like that doesn't leave no digital trace unless they're damn good at hiding. Back in the hangar, Rebecca stood alone beneath the shadow of the bomber, fingers resting gently on the cold surface of the aircraft. Not like a tourist, not like an outsider. Like someone visiting an old friend. Across the floor, Davis shook his head. What kind of contractor moves like that? What's she really doing here? Nobody had an answer, not yet. But something had shifted. The jokes grew quieter, the glances more curious, the air thicker, like a storm about to break. And in that silence, one thing became painfully clear. Rebecca Foster wasn't here just to inspect. She was watching, measuring, calculating. And deep down, some of them were starting to wonder, who the hell is she? She didn't defend herself. She didn't explain. And somehow that made it more unsettling. By the second day, the hangar crew no longer ignored her. They couldn't. Rebecca Foster didn't act like a contractor. She didn't ask for help, but she never looked lost either. She didn't carry rank, but somehow, people stepped out of her way. And when she walked the length of the hangar, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning systems no one outside the B-2 program should have understood, there was something in her pace, in her gaze. Like she wasn't just auditing equipment, she was testing the people who touched it. Tech Sergeant Rodriguez noticed it first. "Davis," he muttered during morning checks, "you remember that trick she pulled with the comms yesterday?" Davis, still trying to shake off his embarrassment, grumbled, "Yeah, what about it?" She knew exactly where the secondary router fault was. No hesitation. Could have been a lucky guess. Rodriguez shook his head. A guess doesn't fix it that fast. The tension grew with every quiet observation she made. When a junior mechanic struggled with a pressure gauge reading, Rebecca didn't criticize. She just reached in, adjusted a coupling by less than a quarter inch, and the numbers jumped back into range. No words, no applause, just subtle surgical precision. It wasn't long before Chief Martinez began digging deeper. He couldn't shake the feeling that he'd seen her before or someone like her. He pulled archive photos from years of maintenance records, flipped through image after image of visiting officials, contractors, and dignitaries. Nothing. Until one grainy image stopped him cold. A woman, younger, standing in full flight gear, helmet in hand, same eyes, same expression, same aura of silent purpose. The file was stamped Black Dawn Operation Classified, Top Level. Personnel records? Redacted. Every name? Scrubbed clean. But the photo didn't lie. Martinez leaned back in his chair, whispering to no one, "What the hell are you doing back here?" That afternoon, during a routine systems check, Rebecca casually pointed out a hydraulic imbalance on the starboard stabilizer, a problem no one else had noticed. Rodriguez's voice cracked slightly as he asked, "Ma'am, how'd you catch that?" Her response was simple. "I've seen what happens when it goes unchecked." No one asked follow-up questions. They just watched her walk away, heads turning in sync, the hangar quieter than usual. But the silence was short-lived. At precisely 1,430 hours, the emergency alarms began to blare. Code Amber. All personnel report to designated stations. Inside the command office, chaos ignited. Colonel Harrison stormed onto the hangar floor with 2 officers at his heels. "Where's the systems auditor?" he snapped. "Over by the avionics panel, sir," Chief Martinez replied, trying to keep his voice level. When Harrison laid eyes on Rebecca, something shifted in his posture recognition. Confusion? It was hard to tell. He motioned for a private conversation. Behind the glass walls of the office, the conversation was tense, and though no one could hear it, they saw everything: the body language, the way Rebecca stood straight as a board, the way the intelligence officer beside Harrison grew increasingly animated. And then, something unexpected. Rebecca stepped forward, firmly, deliberately, placing a small embroidered patch on the table. It was old, worn, but unmistakable to those who'd served long enough. The Spirit Talon insignia. Rodriguez whispered, "No way. That patch was only given to B, 2 elite combat pilots, special ops tier." Davis's eyes widened. "But that means—" "She flew," Martinez cut in, barely breathing. "She was one of them." Inside the office, Harrison studied the patch like it was a ghost returning to haunt him. The intelligence officer was visibly upset now, shaking her head. Rebecano, Rain Calder, stood still. A statue of composure, her mask, for the first time, cracking ever so slightly. And then came the call. A team of Army Rangers, overseas, pinned down, enemy armor advancing, no air support available for 4 hours. Their primary stealth pilot, in the medical bay with heat stroke. The colonel looked at Rain. "You're officially dead, Captain," the intelligence officer warned. "You can't fly a classified mission." Rain didn't blink. "They don't care about my paperwork, Ma'am. They care if they make it out alive." Back in the hangar, the mood turned electric. They could all see it, the shift, the realignment. No one looked at her like a contractor anymore. They were looking at a pilot, an operator, a ghost that had come back for one reason: to save lives. For 2 days, they had mocked her. For 2 days, they had whispered, doubted, joked behind her back. Now, they were looking at her like she had risen from the dead. Colonel Harrison's voice cracked across the hangar. "Clear the floor. Prepare the B-2 for immediate launch." A collective gasp spread across the mechanics. "Ma'am," Chief Martinez stepped forward, hesitating. "That's a full combat loadout. We don't have mission clearance." Rain Calderont's Rebecca Foster turned to face him. "You do now." No hesitation, no ceremony. She stripped off the contractor badge and pulled a folded document from her personal Kita-signed override code, decades old, marked with red-stamped clearance, eyes only, Ghost Talon authorization. The hangar went still. Martinez took the document, read it, and slowly looked back at her. "You've done this before." She nodded once. "I've done worse." Staff Sergeant Davis stood dumbstruck. You're not just a pilot, are you? Rain offered the ghost of a smile. I used to be, once. Now I'm just someone who didn't forget how. Inside the command center, the situation was deteriorating fast. Ranger Actual was calling again, voice ragged with urgency. This is Ranger Actual. Enemy armor less than 1 click out. We've got wounded. We're not going to hold. Rain was already suited up, helmet under her arm, the spirit talon patch now firmly displayed on her sleeve. Rodriguez, still trying to catch up, stammered, But ma'am, you were. They said you were dead. I was, Rain said softly. Black Dawn made sure of that. That name, Black Dawn, fell like a thunderclap in the room. Everyone froze. Black Dawn wasn't just classified. It was erased, a mission so buried that only shadows remembered. Davis stepped forward. What happened? Rain paused, hand resting on the aircraft. We saved 100 hostages, but not everyone walked away. Not officially. I made choices the brass couldn't explain, so they wrote me out, killed me on paper, sent me into the dark. Why come back? Davis asked. Why now? Because 40 Rangers are alive for now, but they won't be if we wait for permission. Colonel Harrison arrived at the hangar just as the ground crew was locking down final systems. He looked at her, then at the B-2. This is going to bury my career, he muttered. Rain met his gaze. Not if I make it back. And if you don't, then no one ever knows I was here. Harrison inhaled deeply, then gave a sharp nod. Spirit 7, you are cleared for launch. The entire hangar exploded into motion. Technicians moved faster than they ever had. Tools flew, hoses detached, fuel lines rechecked. The laughter and teasing of the previous days had vanished. In its place, respect, urgency, fear and awe. Davis rushed up one last time as Rain climbed the ladder into the cockpit. I owe you an apology, he said, eyes burning with shame. Rain looked down at him, steady. You thought what you were supposed to think, she said. That's how I've stayed alive. He looked at her hand steady on the ladder rails. You're the real deal, aren't you? I was a ghost airman. Now I'm a warning. The canopy hissed shut. The engines came to life low at first. Then a rising growl, a war cry reborn. From the control tower, Rain's voice came across the radio calm, clear, cold steel. Spirit 7, requesting departure, runway 27, no escort, no delay. Spirit 7, cleared for immediate launch, winds light and variable. The B-2 taxied forward, its wings slicing through the morning haze. On the tarmac, Chief Martinez saluted as she passed. She shouldn't be flying, he whispered, but God help us, she's the only one who can. Back inside, the hangar crew gathered around the radio. They listened in silence as Rain climbed to 35,000 feet, then vanished from radar. For the next 4 hours, no one moved. No one spoke. Only the voice of Ranger Actual echoed occasionally, each call more desperate than the last. And then finally, Rain's voice returned. This is Spirit 7, visual acquired, targets locked, weapons hot. The hangar erupted into a mix of tension and prayer. Then, silence. Then, boom, boom, boom. Davis pressed his headset tighter. Direct hits on all targets, came the Ranger's voice, choked with emotion. You just saved 40 lives. Just doing my job, Rain answered, almost bored. But the celebration was short-lived. Rain's next words chilled them to the bone. Command, I've been painted by hostile radar, taking evasive action, going dark. And then nothing. For over an hour, a whole crew stood frozen in time, listening to static. Waiting. Praying. Until at last a single voice broke through. Falcon Ridge Control, this is Spirit 7, requesting landing clearance. They erupted in cheers, fists in the air, grown men choking back tears. She had done it. The impossible. Again. The B-2 Spirit rolled to a stop on the tarmac just as the sky turned lavender with morning light. The engines wound down to a deep, haunting hum like the aircraft itself knew what had just happened. Every mechanic, every officer, every technician in Hangar 7 stood in silence, watching. The canopy hissed open. And from it, Rain Calder climbed out not with swagger, not with a salute, but with a quiet composure that made even the most seasoned veterans stand a little straighter. Her face was pale with fatigue, her eyes focused, but haunted. Chief Martinez stepped forward. Status, Captain? Rain handed him her flight data drive. Aircraft performed flawlessly, she said. No issues to report. That was all. No grand speech, no declarations. Just a woman doing her job. Colonel Harrison approached, followed by 2 senior officers. You disobeyed every protocol in the book, he said softly. Rain didn't flinch, and 40 Rangers will make it home to their families because of it. Harrison nodded once. Then I guess we'll figure out the paperwork later. As the crew began dispersing, Rain gathered her small kit just like she had 2 days earlier when she arrived as a nobody. But this time, no one was laughing, no one was doubting. Airman Davis hurried over, nervous, almost stumbling over his own words. Ma'am, Captain, I mean, will we ever see you again? Rain turned, gave him a small smile, the kind that doesn't reach the lips but lingers in the soul. You won't see me coming, Airman, she said gently, but when you need me most, I'll be there. She walked toward the waiting vehicle. No farewell ceremony, no parade. Just a woman in a faded flight suit, stepping back into the shadows. But before she climbed in, she paused, turned back to the crew standing under the hangar lights. Her voice carried just enough. Take care of that aircraft, and take care of each other. Then she was gone. Disappeared. Again. Just like a ghost. 3 weeks later, the investigation team arrived from DC. They combed through records, interviewed crew, pulled communications logstream to trace who had flown the unauthorized mission. No one knew anything. No one remembered names. No one had details. Chief Martinez handed over exactly what they expected. A perfectly clean audit report from a civilian contractor. Nothing suspicious. Major Williams, the intelligence officer assigned to the case, confronted Airman Davis in a side office. You were there. You saw her. Who was she? Davis stared back. She fixed a calibration tool, suggested a comms reroute, told me to watch my couplings, he said carefully. Just a contractor, ma'am. And the B-2 that launched that night? Must have been a scheduled test flight, he said. I was off shift. Williams narrowed her eyes, but said nothing. They all knew. But no one was going to say it. Because it wasn't about protecting Herritt, it was about honoring what she had done. 6 months later, at a base on the other side of the country, Rain Calderno, under a new name, new ID, continued her quiet work. Another audit, another hangar, another aircraft. But something had shifted. For 5 years, she'd moved from base to base as a shadow, an invisible safeguard for machines and missions no one was supposed to know about. Now, whispers followed her, quiet acknowledgments from those who had heard. Not her name, but the legend. The ghost Talon. The pilot who was supposed to be dead, but showed up when the impossible became necessary. And then, 1 year later, everything changed. Falcon Ridge Air Base was crowded that morning. Senior officers, dignitaries, mechanics in dress uniform, even press. The hangar had been cleared, polished, and dressed in flags. In the center, the B-2 Spirit, gleaming under the lights. Not for combat, but for ceremony. Colonel Harrison stood at the podium. Today, he said, we honor not only the pilot who saved 40 American soldiers, but the years of invisible service that followed, the quiet missions, the audits that weren't audits, the guardian we didn't know we had. A pause. She walked into our hangar, a nobody, and left as a legend. Then the doors opened, and there she was. Rain Calder, this time, not in a nameless jumpsuit, not hiding. She walked in wearing the full-dress uniform of a U.S. Air Force major. Spirit Talon patch on her shoulder, wings on her chest, and a face that carried more weight than medals could ever show. The room stood, every person, every rank. Davis, now a staff sergeant, wiped something from his eye. She's real, he whispered. General Morrison handed Rain a folded flag. Not just any flag, he said. This flew over Hangar 7 the night you returned. Rain accepted it without a word. No speech, just a nod of deep, quiet understanding. Then Chief Martinez stepped forward, clearing his throat. Ma'am, we just want you to know we never doubted you were exactly who we needed, even if we didn't see it at first. As the crowd began to disperse, a young airman approached nervously. My brother was one of those Rangers, he said. He's getting married next month. I just wanted to say thank you. You gave him that chance. Rain placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. Your brother saved himself, she said. I just provided a ride. Greatness doesn't wear a sign. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It walks in quietly, observes, prepares, and when the moment comes it acts. No permission, no applause, just results. The world may never know her name, but somewhere out there, when the impossible returns, when the mission seems too dangerous, too late, too lost, the ghost Helen will fly again. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done in Rain Calder's place? Do you believe some heroes are meant to remain in the shadows? Drop a comment below. Would you like to hear more stories like this of quiet legends, forgotten missions, or those who serve without recognition? And if you had the chance, which untold story would you like us to tell next? Your voice helps us keep these powerful stories alive.